Hi everyone, this is Arian Reed, and this is my 12th month on T. This month, I was really excited to see some hair coming in on my sides. So, like, my sideburns have been coming all the way down, and they're still not very thick. The hair itself is not very thick. There's also not very many hairs coming in, and the hairs that are coming in, they're pretty thin, and some of them are not even dark. So but there are some that are dark, and there's some that are like, they're kind of dark, but they're also really thin, and so they just look kind of, instead of looking black, they look gray. Yay. So yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, so I do have some hair coming in, and I have some coming in underneath my jaw, like not along the sides, but like along the undersides. So it's kind of funny because it will sneak up on me. Because in my restroom here, it's very, very small, it's pretty dim, and it's really hard to see a lot about yourself in my little medicine cabinet mirror. There's not, it's really difficult to see things, and I'll go to like someone's, much nicer house and, much brighter lit restroom or something, and I'll look in the mirror and see like all of a sudden hair that I didn't know I had. So for instance, I recently had thought that I had shaved everything that needed to be shaved. I didn't really bother with like places where I don't really have hair. And I went to a friend's house, and like it was all clean shaven, and then like right here, for instance, there was like a group of like 3 hairs I didn't know I had, and they had not only grown in, but they were like an inch long, so they must have been growing in for a while. And they just shot out like right here. I was like, oh, that's so pretty, like just clean shaven and just like random splotch of hair just sticking out, like, oh, yay. So, it'll kind of surprise you. And I do have one hair that came in underneath my chin, like just underneath it, like in the center or something. I have like one hair, and it's pretty dark, and it's pretty thick, and it's the only one of its kind for a while. Nothing's really changed through here or anything like that. And nothing, on the neck or anything like that either. I do have a couple bit more on my chest, right? On like my nipples are like right here, for instance. So like, let's say like my areolas or whatever, like, they're around here, and the hair is like kind of like on this side of them, right? So it's like kind of coming in this way. And the hair that's like kind of, the peach fuzz hair I previously mentioned that was like getting a little bit longer throughout here, that stuff kind of really hasn't done anything. It's still really just thin and short and, slightly darker than ever, but not by much. It's really, it's like nothing is going on there. The hair, like the happy trail stuff is still not really doing anything. And then on my happy trail itself, like there's like a section down near the bottom where it kind of, flares out into your like pubic region. The hairs along that path are getting a little bit longer, along that flare. They're getting a touch longer, maybe a touch thicker. And then the hair like all around, like all over my stomach in general, is kind of just not really doing anything. It's kind of chilling, like villain. And I do have more hair on my thighs, like just underneath it, like all around it, just, a full 360-degree covered carpet of a leg. And it's just, it's getting thicker, it's getting longer, it's getting curly, it's some freaking gnarly hair down there. The one place where I like didn't care if I ever got hair, or what happened there, that's of course the place where I have like the manliest hair. So yay. But I do have more hair on my hands now. Yay. I do have, it's getting longer, and it's just so great. Like as soon as I start my video, if someone decides to fly a jet over my house, it's been quiet for like 20 minutes, and then bam, jet. But anyway, I do have a little bit more hair on my hand, and then it's also a little bit more towards like the inside of my arm, and it's just kind of getting a little bit darker and thicker. Like the hair is starting to become a bit more, noticeable. Like just the hair I already had is just getting darker, thicker. So it's starting to give me slightly more masculine looking arms, which is kind of nice, Not that my arms themselves are changing a whole lot, even though I, lift weights like every day. But they're getting a little bit more masculine hair is basically what I'm saying, which is helping, I guess, my hands and arms to pass a little bit more. I do have hair on like the backs of my calves, which I've never had before, and yeah, just a lot of hair changes this month. It's been kind of a hairy month. I am working on my voice this month. I started vocal lessons a couple weeks ago, and we have worked me into having I've got a solid octave of notes, and then I've got like a little bit more, so it's like almost an octave and a half, but unfortunately that like upper half is it's really finicky. It's very breaky. My voice likes to really break in that region a lot. There's notes that I have to like really warm my way up into using them. They're not just there right away. You have to like work on them, and then like all of a sudden, like after 10 minutes of embarrassing myself, finally something nice comes out for like a second. But it's there. It's in progress, and we're hoping maybe we can work me a little bit higher up over time. We'll work our way through that whole octave, hopefully, and maybe someday I can like do a little bit deeper. Not sure if I can go much deeper than what we're at, but it's kind of it's kind of interesting to see how like sometimes it's much more manageable and sometimes it's harder to do. So like one week I'll be doing my lessons, and like I'll in that like higher area I'll break super easy, and it's stressful and I can't get through it, and then like other times it just like comes right out. So it changes, it really fluctuates, and which makes the lessons a little bit challenging, because we'll be like, what the heck, like we already made this progress, and why does it feel like your voice is like going backwards and like unprogressing like this? It's so, and then like the next week we'll like make a little bit more progress. It's like, it's so weird, but we're working on it. And it's really exciting to be able to finally learn how to sing professionally, because I've always wanted to do that. And then I was experimenting with gender for a couple years, and then when I decided and settled on that being a trans man was like the number one best gender for me after trying out like all the others, I settled on this one, and it's been like definitely like the closest thing I can describe of myself. So I've stuck with it, and since I settled on it, I didn't feel like there was a need to go learn how to professionally sing as a female if my voice was just going to completely change itself, if I transitioned. And I decided, to transition, and here we are. And so now that it's been about a year, and my voice I was really wanting to, do some vocal lessons, and then there's this Facebook group I think it's called My Transgender Family or something like that. I think it was through there that I found someone who mentioned that she works for or owns the online singing company and vocal training company, and they specifically work with a lot of trans people. And so I was like, sure, I'll try it. I've always wanted to do this, so I tried it and I love it. So I want to say it's called True Voice, and it's going really great. My trainer is really, really friendly, very like down to earth, friendly, thoughtful person. So it's just been great. It's very judgmental free. No judgment, no, nothing bad. It's just been great. So I'm really enjoying that, and hoping that I can start to sing again someday, because it was really stressful to lose my ability to sing. Not that I was ever a professional singer or good at it. It was one of those things I did to like, to get stress off my chest. I just like to like sing to my own songs that I write down, and then to like suddenly lose my ability to like hit those notes anymore, and to do those songs, it just really like stressed me out. And so I'm feeling a little bit better, at least knowing that I'm on a path that will get me back to singing, and maybe have me singing better than ever before. We'll see what happens. I have a lot of hope. And then my other thing this month has been my general anxiety has been kind of higher. And I know it is COVID, and I'm worried about like my friends and family who are struggling to put food on their table. I was worried about my family for a little while, because my my husband, not only because he's a person of color and, and so like the kind of things that we've always had to deal with, with racial profiling and stuff are becoming, I'm starting to really hear about a lot more deaths and, murders going on. Whereas like they've been going on for a long time, but no one's really vocalized them, and given them the voice that they deserve. And now that they are receiving that kind of attention, it's really reminding me like, yeah, it is really dangerous for him to just be himself in public, and he's out there every day working in public because he's an essential service and he can't work from home. He's a truck driver, so he's out on the road every day, and in our personal vehicles, he gets pulled over a lot. Not as much these days, but like I know we've been together about like 12 years. I know like in the first few years, like we would get pulled over a ton, and searched, and for no reason. We'd be trying to like just eat like a meal at a park, and like a police person would just like walk up and start questioning him about where he's been today and what he's been doing, and we're like, dude, like we're on a date, leave us alone. And what is going on? And of course they're like, oh well, like a crime recently happened a few blocks away and you match the description. And I'm like, of course he matches the description, he's a brown man. Like what was the description? Like a brown man and a white person, like on a date in this park? Or just, do we really look like we just robbed someone? We're sitting here like on our anniversary trying to enjoy like a slice of cake we just bought from this place, and so I'm showing them the receipts like, yeah, we just came from like this place, and we were literally somewhere very different during the time of this robbery that my husband just so happens to match the description for. Like, leave us alone. We've always had to deal with that kind of stuff, and now to like hear about like, now like be every day like hearing about like a new murder like constantly, it's so stressful. I'm just like, oh my god, like my husband could be next. Like he's out there every day all over the place, delivering things. He delivers propane, and so he has to like just go everywhere. And they're just sending him to like one city after another, like just all over the place, every residence. And I'm just like, oh my god, please, nobody kill him. Let him come home each day to me. So there's been a lot to be stressed about, but I also just feel like there's just some general anxiety in general. Because even when I am able to address what I'm concerned about, for instance, I was really worried about religion, about like God not being okay with people being gay and stuff like that. It's always kind of been like in the back of my mind, and then lately I've been trying to become more religious, and that's been kind of interfering with my ability to do that. So I've just been really kind of stressed about like what does God feel about us, and because it's hard to really connect with religion and really pray to God and really read the scriptures and stuff with, the kind of fervor I used to, when like I'm worried that like God doesn't even accept me or my marriage, because now we're, same gender, not same sex, of course. My sex is very non-binary, at this point, but like our gender is, we're a same gender couple, and, I feel like these kind of things apply to us. And even if they don't, like, it still matters to me what God thinks about the LGBTQ community in general. Those are, my people, and those are my peeps, man. So I just, I would get worried about that. And then I realized, I did some research and found that, that a lot of like that pretty much like all the scriptures in the Bible that were homophobic were actually mistranslated. The word arsenokoitai, the Greek word, was mistranslated. It's supposed to mean child molester. That's the closest equivalent in English, but was actually translated to mean homosexual. In 1946, that was how they decided to translate it when they were translating it because they translated the Greek into German, and then they translated the German into English. And when they translated the German into English to create like a better translation, they actually changed those things. So they changed that word. They also changed both of the parts in Leviticus where he says, man shall not lie with another man as he does with a woman. It was actually originally read as man shall not lie with young boys as he does with a woman. It was trying to, put a stop to, all these phrases were trying to put a stop to the child molestation that was going on, which is called pederasty. They're trying to put a stop to that, not to homosexuality. And when they were translating from German to English in 1946, someone changed that translation, and then someone else pointed it out and was ignored, of course. And they just paraded onward with this translation. And so that's where a lot of our unrest here in America That's where a lot of our homophobia has come from, unfortunately. So after learning all of that, that really helped address all of my anxiety. So then I should have had no more anxiety, except that I just did. I just felt anxious in general. You know, and I just felt like it was because of testosterone. I feel like I'm just feeling my lows more than ever. And I recently had my 1 year blood test done. It's been 6 months since my last one, so I had to do another blood test so I could stay on testosterone. And my blood test showed that my testosterone was a little bit noticeably lower than it was 6 months ago, even though my dosage has stayed the same. So I think maybe my body's become less sensitive to it or something. And now I'm just kind of feeling that, like, you know, irritability and general anxiety and slightly trouble sleeping and stuff that, like, you get when, like, your testosterone is low. And so I've decided to try out doing my testosterone. Instead of, like, taking one dose every 2 weeks, I've been trying out that one dose each week that a lot of people do to try to overlap my dosage, so I have, like, a more of a, you know, level, more of a steady dosing, you know, level of hormones in my body than the up and downs that I was experiencing. And I'm gonna see how that goes. It's only been 1 week, and so far I feel a little bit crampy and constantly worrying that, like, I'm gonna get a period from this, that, you know, my testosterone is now at, like, consistently too low of a cycle, of a level for it to trigger the cessation of menstruation. So we'll see what happens, but so far no bleeding or anything like that yet, just the occasional cramps, and mainly just when I eat sugar, because sugar does worsen cramps. So, you know, it's mainly when I eat sugar that I feel it. And hopefully the anxiety goes away. I'm still feeling a touch anxious each day, but it becomes less and less as the week goes on. And then I'll get my next half of my dose on, you know, next week. So we'll see how this goes. Hopefully it helps out. In the meantime, I tried out CBD oil, just like little oil inside capsules, you know, that I take. And so I would take them because I noticed I was getting my anxiety typically in the evenings for some reason. So what I would do is around an hour or so before it typically strikes, that's when I would try to take my CBD oil capsule, and then it would, like, relax me, it would mellow me out. Unfortunately, it makes me tired, which is nice because then it helps me sleep. Until I fall asleep, I feel a little bit irritable because, you know, I'm, like, tired. You know, so I have that, like, exhaustion, irritability stuff going on. So it doesn't really help with the irritability so much, but it did help with my anxiety, and it does help me sleep. So I've been doing, I've tried out a couple of those so far this week, and that seems to be helping me out, and hopefully just having more level hormones will eliminate the need for that, but we'll see what happens. You know, if this doesn't work out for me, I might have to go back to the once every 2 weeks, you know, ups and downs, just because I feel like every time I experience those peaks in testosterone, that seems to, like, really stop all the, like, you know, tendency for my body to be crampy or to have thoughts about starting menstruation. You know, it kind of seems to, like, stop it, and then, like, you know, the low points don't seem to last long enough to trigger it, you know, before my next high point. You know, so that has always, like, worked out for me. I'm just afraid this might not, because I might be too low at all times, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, I also have, my body has also just been kind of filling out a little bit, just a touch, not, like, anything very noticeable, but, like, for instance, this is a new shirt. This is a men's size small. I've always worn size extra smalls, and I'm really glad to say that the smalls that I recently received are fitting great. As you can see, I'm really, like, filling them up. The arms are even, like, a little bit, there's a touch looseness to them because it is a size up, but they're still, like, you know, nice and snug on the arms. They're not hanging off of me or anything, so that's a really nice feeling to, you know, be able to really fill up my shirts. And, you know, I'm still working out. I'm still doing a lot of weightlifting. I recently took a week off of weightlifting. It's something you're supposed to do, you know, once every 7 weeks or so. You're supposed to take a week off to let your connective tissues, basically like ligaments, tendons, things like that, heal up, because they take more than 2 to 3 days to heal, whereas your muscles, you know, they only take about 2 to 3 days to heal, and that's why you do, you know, leg day, and then, you know, wait 2 or 3 days before you can do another leg day. You know, so your connective tissues take longer to heal, so you do need to take a week off now and then so that they have a full 7 days for them to do their healing. So that way you don't increase your chances of injuring yourself. If you never take that week off and you just, lift weights 5 days a week, week after week after week all year long, then you're increasing your chances of getting injured via a sprain or something else involving those connective tissues, because they're weakening and weakening and weakening, and you're never giving them a chance to heal. So I recently did that to give those things a chance to heal. And when I came back into working out, I was really afraid that I was going to have like some backward progress or something, and that's part of the reason why I hadn't been taking my week off for like a year. So I finally took my week off, and when I came back to it, I actually felt better. I felt stronger. I could do my exercises more cleanly. I could lift a slightly more weight. I could just handle a little bit more weight. I just felt stronger, fresher. It just felt much better, and I didn't see any sort of like noticeable decrease in muscle. Of course, it was just 1 week. I felt like my body really did need it and did a lot of good on it. So I'm gonna try to make a habit out of taking my break, my 7 days off, much more than just once a year. And yeah, I'm just really glad to see that I'm filling these things up. Unfortunately, I still don't fill up the size large binder just yet, but I'm holding on to those size large binders for when I have top surgery, because I'm going to have periareola, also called keyhole. And when you have that kind of surgery, you have to bind for a long time afterwards, because it does take like a year or two for all that excess skin to go away, especially since the kind of surgery I'm having, he's not going to take any skin. He's literally just going to like open me up and take out all the flesh, all the mammary glands and stuff, and then just like sew me back up. And it's going to be on my body to get rid of all the excess skin that is now just like emptied out. So I'm going to have to bind for a while. So I'm just going to hold on to those. But the kind of binding that you do for a while after your surgery is with a looser binder than what you normally do for like, general binding. So I figure I'm just going to save those size large binders for that, because they're a little bit loose on me, and I can kind of see like the shape of my breasts and stuff, like more so than ever with those. And I get gendered as female when I wear them. So I think that's I think that's a sign that they're too loose. They'll have to wait. But I do fit the size mediums really well. So well that I tend to get stuck in them when I try to get out of them. So they're on the verge of being too small. But the large are noticeably too large. So anyway, yeah, so this has been, a great month. Nothing bad has happened, despite all my anxiety. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like it. If you like awesome videos, please subscribe. And I'm going to start having a coughing fit. Alright, thanks. See ya.
Hi everyone, my name is Arian. This is my first week on T.
Hi everyone, this is Arian Reed, and this is my 12th month on T.
This is my talking voice. This is my talking voice.
This is my talking voice. This is my talking voice. Why can't you see me? Even with you I feel alone. Why can't you hear me? Even silent, I'm still wrong. I just wanna live unchanged from the sky. Even from my skin I try to hide. I just wanna know what it's like to feel safe when I'm outside. I want to live unashamed. I want to live without a name. I want to live so unmade. I just want to live.
page or even a mouse. I want to dance, so uncouth. I want to dance right now. I want to dance like an open flame, without a partner and even untamed. I want to dance till I'm maimed. I just wanna dance. Why can't you see me? Even with you I feel alone. Why can't you hear me? Even silent, I'm still wrong. I want to feel the unbound page in the book of an angel's unborn rage. I want to feel underage, bar for a goddess of a cage. I want to feel an unsolved delight at the bottom of the pommel of a long lost knife. I want to feel like I'm alive. I want to feel alive.